because we got time tonight. And I was hating on the Swift blocker, but you know what? It's actually doing pretty decent. It just took me a little bit to get the hang of what this thing's about. We're gonna rinse it off best we can. Really, the key or the only flaw with this is just kind of how just stuff gets stuck between the molds there. So to get a good Swift block, if you will, you got to scrape all that stuff out if it doesn't come out after rinsing. And ideally you want to use something that's plastic, not metal, because I don't want to mess up the paint, but I'm just kind of lightly running this through to get that crud loosened up. Because if you don't do that, when you go to try to make blocks after the initial set, you're not going to get good blocks. They're going to end up, this thing will only press down 3/4 of the way, and it will get stuck because everything's so backed up in those grooves. So that's really the key to getting this thing to make decent blocks, is that you're pretty much going to have to rinse this out after every press. So I've got this here. I'm going to just drop this in. I'm just going to push this down until it's all the way down. And then we're going to pile a little bit more on top. It's kind of doing this one-handed. If you want a denser block, well, just a little bit more. So we're going to be pushing down. Ideally, I would have had this mounted up about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch above the height of this standard. So I just press it in, there'd already be excess. And then you would just come on top, line this up. And then what I'll do is get both hands there and press this out. Let's see if we can get the tripod action going again. Move all this stuff over so you can kind of see. It's all the way down. Bringing it over to our pizza stand so you can see me press out some blocks. It's just literally just pushing this down a little bit and then pulling that up to myself. And there it is, perfect blocks. Again, you see the crud in there, I gotta get that out. So we wanna drop this in water and rinse that. Got most of it out. There's still crud in there, so that's the only thing that's difficult about this because you're really going to need to make sure your grooves are cleaned out after each press. And I do have this plastic scraper, which is what you want. And really clean that out. So that's the only thing that's going to hold you up. Is making sure that's cleaned out. That way you get a good, you get some good blocks. So, voila. Got 9 blocks. Pretty good. And take that. Not bad. And then we'll drop our seeds on there. So, I've already got my blocks. The one at 32 here, where I made enough to do 32. I could add some more if I want, but I think we'll just do 32. And we'll drop some seeds here. So we'll get that going. So again, I'm starting stuff in stages. Started at tray of peppers the other night. 2 nights ago, we're going to do some more. Got my red cayennes. We'll start them on the end. These are just standard coin envelopes. I've got a whole lifetime's worth. Here's my little seeds. I'm going to take 2 of these and press them into the middle of that block. There should be a little divot. These were some of the first blocks I made, so they're not that good, because I was kind of figuring out how to use the tool. You know, cleaning it out and such. But there we go. At least one, if not both those seeds should sprout, providing the moisture and conditions are right. Got red Thai chilies. Can do the same thing. Spacing these out enough that if both of them do sprout, I can separate them pretty easy, I think, if that's what I want to do. Sometimes what I'll, instead of separating them, I'll just take scissors, or I'll pluck out the one that looks weaker, or I'll take scissors and cut one of them off, so that way, you know, there's not this competition. They can grow together for a little bit, but if you let them go too long together, then they're competing for nutrients. You're not going to have as healthy of a seedling than you would if you just par it down to one. And sometimes it's hard to tell which one's going to do better, but another way of starting seeds is to, there's all kinds of methods, right? There's been some years I filled one of these little 5x5s up and just dumped a bunch of seeds in there, and then once they all sprouted, pulled them all out, and then looked at them individually, looking at the root stocks and the stems and all that, and then transplanted all of them. And ended up with way more plants than I had intended. Last year I had probably 3 times as much than what I really needed, which worked out. I was able to bless a friend, gave him enough plants to basically start his own garden, plus he was able to give leftovers. So I had enough to do my garden, enough to do his garden, and then there were enough left over he could share with, I think, 2 other people. Start their gardens. What's amazing too is how many seeds you get from just one pepper, one ripe pepper. And as long as he stay in, a dark, cool place, they'll stay viable for years. Which is a good thing, because there might be a year where, for whatever reason, whether it's weather or whatever, your stuff just doesn't do as well. And you're not really able to save seeds. I know sometimes with the big seed catalogs, there's years where they don't carry things because whoever the farmer was that they were getting the seeds from, or whatever the plots they had designated, they had basically a crop failure, right? And how did this happen? All right, so we do need to add a line of blocks here. I'm glad I made these extra. There. Now we got our 32. But anyway, they'll have crop failure, and then they won't have any seeds for that year because of the crop failure. So you just never know. I'll save seeds every year from most everything I do, just in case. And I haven't really had a significant crop failure yet, which is good. I'm hoping the next couple weeks I can get out to the garden and actually do some bed prep. I've got a couple buddies that are interested in tagging along and helping me and learning. So I'll probably take them up on that this year. We were able to get the main garden covered and the smaller beds to the south covered with leaf mulch. On the north side though, there's still a big pile of leaves that we didn't ever get to spreading, so it's just going to end up being like a big old compost pile. I got a lot of work to do. To get everything ready. Still need to order onions. It may be too late. I need to check the Dixondale site. I may have missed a cutoff to order onion plants this year. We shall see. All right, there we are. Get all the varieties planted. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this wet mix and push a little bit on top of each of these. So I'll put my little gloves on. To go ahead and do that. We're just going to take it off these soil blocks. I don't want to put too much, but enough to cover them. And I want to push it into the existing blocks so that way through capillary action when I bottom water these, water will get pulled up to the top as well and keep these seeds nice and moist so they'll eventually sprout. Plus we'll get condensation from the lid that drips down, which will help keep everything nice and warm. Like right now, the current tray, it's 80 degrees. I could probably turn the mat up actually. The peppers tend to like the warmer temps, at least 80. It's going to take them a little while to germinate or sprout. Be careful, I don't want to push too hard because I end up breaking the blocks apart. The rule of thumb is that you want to put however long the seed is, that's about how deep you want to plant it. So I'm only putting about probably the equivalent of like an 1/8 inch of potting mix on top of these, so that it shouldn't be a Herculean effort for these things to sprout. Sometimes if you cover them too deep, they either don't sprout because they're too deep, or if they do sprout, by the time they get to the top, they've pretty well exhausted the nutrients that were in the original seed. They kind of gas out. So here we go. We're just, again, doing a little bit at a time. Do peppers tonight. I'll probably do some greens tomorrow. Whatever we want to plant earlier on. Then in a couple weeks we'll do tomatoes. And put this back in here. Now this mix is wet still. What I didn't use, and what you can do, you can either leave it be and it will eventually dry out, or you can add potting mix to it to help just dry it out, which I may do that. Let's go ahead and add that, or just spread it out so it does dry out quicker. That's probably what I'll do. We'll spend some time cleaning up. So there it is. Get 32, at least 32 plants, assuming just one sprouts per cell. Our next steps, I'll get some water to fill this up. About a ½ inch. That'll seep into the blocks. We'll put the lid on it and we'll be good to go. All right, I guess that's it. Till next time, happy gardening.